Adam Soos here for Revolt News, and in just a moment, I'm going to be joined by a man who needs no introduction, James Topp. He walked, in fact, marched right across this country from Vancouver to Ottawa in opposition to vaccine mandates. As you've no doubt seen, it's an image that will likely be seared into the minds of Canadians for the rest of their life. Something that's likely to pop up in the history books. The moment when James Topp put his hand on the tomb of the unknown soldier, wept. Incredibly emotional, beautiful stuff. I did have the opportunity to talk to James when he was in Calgary, and I knew when I looked into his eyes that conviction there, that intention, he was going to get this job done. But it's incredible to see it come to fulfillment. You likely also heard recently, right after effectively that happened, that James Topp was said to be court-martialed. Little bit of misinformation there, so we want to set the story straight. So I'm now joined by James Topp. James, thanks so much for being on with me.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to kind of make sure that this gets put to right.
Hey, happy to do it. First off, before we get into this sort of pressing news, I just want to sort of go back to that moment, this Herculean task. I know you shy away from the comparisons, but very many people saying that this is a little bit of Terry Fox's legacy, standing up for groups that have been marginalized, gone through some hardships. So many Canadians certainly viewing you as a hero. Media, as we'll talk about in a little bit, has gone out of their way to vilify you. But setting all that aside first, what was the experience like of reaching the monument there, of placing your hand on the tomb, of completing at least this first leg of your incredible journey?
Yeah, I've had a couple of interviews today, and I've been able to kind of been asked the same question and been able to reflect on it, and it really has been. Like I said it before, and I'll say it again. It's difficult to put into words. There was this whirlwind of feeling and emotion, and you know, the final few steps when I walked up there, and it was kind of something I saw happening in my mind's eye way back 4.5 months ago when I started. I was gonna I could kind of imagine that there was going to be summertime heat and getting up there, and actually I could imagine myself putting my hand on the tomb of the unknown soldier, and then there was this relief that it was done. There was this sense of completion and accomplishment, but at the same time, I have to say that it was emotional because there was this kind of reflection on, the hardships that we endured, and especially too, I remembered the folks that, and especially some of the good men and women that I worked with over the course of my career who are kind of no longer with us. But that was kind of one of the reasons why it was very emotional. But at the same time too, I was celebrating the veterans who had been there in January and February, and who stood their ground and stood shoulder to shoulder with their fellow Canadians in trying to air their grievances with the federal government. And ultimately, it was this ability to, like I had kind of talked about before, know in my heart of hearts that I was acting in the same way that veterans, and not only veterans, but all Canadians who kind of like made the sacrifice and to uphold the ideals of this country and the democratic values and these ideas of freedom that we have. So all of that was kind of going through my head in the space of time, I think, in a way that I couldn't articulate if you had asked me then, but I can kind of now because I've had some time to reflect on it. And it was just, what can I say, the reception of the crowd when I got there. I wasn't entirely conscious of it, but I know that there was this respect and there was this moment of silence where everybody was kind of, there with me, and they experienced it too. And it was a remarkable moment in my life, and I'll never forget it. And I have to say that despite the hardships and the pain and the psychological stress and, the situation and the factors that got me into marching in the first place, despite all of that, I really am very fortunate to have been able to experience this. And I met thousands of Canadians from all walks of life, from all backgrounds, from all income brackets on this march. And I'm really, I was in a unique position, and I Terry Fox was an amazing human being, and I think he was in some ways, I don't know if I'm comfortable with the comparison, because I think he accomplished more
Yeah.
and was, yeah.
Well, and
But
I
you
think.
know what I mean? I started there because it does have personal significance for me.
Mhm. And
However,
I
yeah,
think I know people appreciate that about you. They know that you shy away from that. Your entire approach to this entire affair has been somewhat soft spoken. You've been just trying to get the simple message across, and you just kind of get your head down and get to work. And as you mentioned, thousands and thousands of Canadians have sort of rallied behind you, shared your story. I do want to get into a little bit though, despite all of that, despite the positivity, the emotion, you weren't particularly contentious or argumentative or difficult in your positions. You simply stated them and got to marching, and that was it. Despite that, we've done our best to sort of share your side of the story, but media platforms out there have certainly gone out of their way to demonize you, certainly vilify anyone who opposes mandates. I do want to get into here, just like I think it was a day after you put your hand on that tomb and there was that beautiful historical moment, media outlets started running this headline about James Topp to be court-martialed. And it very much was an intention to be like, this guy's a bad guy. And it coincidentally came out right after you had this beautiful moment that thousands of Canadians who maybe were on the fence on this issue were like, wow, there's something to that. But most of these headlines, while they may have been factually accurate, you're technically being court-martialed, they were actually skirting around the truth of what happened. If you could just set the record straight for people out there on the fact that you in fact requested the court martial, and this is not new news, and the media is very much doing this intentionally, seemingly to vilify you.
yeah, absolutely. Like this is similar to what happened back in the middle of May. There was an announcement that I was being charged, and that is entirely true. I mean, I am being charged under the National Defense Act for two counts of um, conduct, prejudice to good order and discipline. The exact phraseology escapes me at the moment, but it's two counts of Article 129 under the National Defense Act. I felt it was necessary to wear my uniform in public and make a public statement criticizing this policy. And if I had to do it again, I would, because I think it's wrong. And all of the mental gymnastics and philosophical jousting that goes on around this issue, I know what's right, I know what's wrong, and to try to make people discriminated based on a medical choice is wrong. To withhold their paychecks is wrong. And I felt it was so wrong that I put my uniform on and I said something about it, and I chose to do something about it. And the fact that this strategically released information comes up at these critical times is, I think, is exactly that. It's to paint this thing in a negative light so that people will not, view this thing with sympathetic eyes.
Yeah.
And having said that, I think it undermines their credibility as a media organization, to be perfectly honest.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would say to that is that it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that this is where we're at in the corporate media landscape, that as opposed to having these conversations like you and I are, they just choose to observe from afar and make these judgments and pronouncements and cast these insults. And it's unfortunate.
Well, the interesting thing is,
So the
despite,
fact of the matter is, we did actually request a court martial.
yeah,
With my counsel. It was
and
something we wanted to happen because we felt that this is what was necessary for us to illustrate exactly why I did what I did, and to illustrate why these mandates are wrong by
mhm.
bringing in a number of experts so that
Well,
they could also comment.
and that's the crux of it, is they said you're getting court-martialed. They put aside the fact that you requested a court-martial because you want these issues addressed. And it's ironic because they intended to vilify you, but what they actually did once the truth of this comes out is they pointed out the fact, not only did James Topp walk across the country, and you're continuing your walk in fact, but he also knew he would likely face court-martialing and serious consequences. You knew all of this was coming, but you said, well, it's the Canadian thing, it's the thing that I have to do because because that's where my conscience is directing me, and what I'm seeing right now is un-Canadian. So they intended to vilify you, but when people get to the bottom of this, they're going to realize just up front. And I know you're very sort of you shy away from these sort of glowing remarks, but you knew that this was going to happen from the onset, and it was part of the sort of conscious sacrifice that you made for this. Another thing that I really want to get into quickly here before we wrap up, I know you've got a busy day. People in Eastern Canada, a couple of people were saying, well, there's lots of Canada left. He didn't go all the way across Canada. Do you have any good news to share for those folks who are maybe hoping?
I certainly do.
Yeah.
Because we are going to continue. It took a bit of soul searching, and I really had to question whether or not it was something that was achievable for me at that point. And it absolutely is, because we did get support from Eastern Canada. I met folks from Nova Scotia who had come to meet me on the road in Ontario. And absolutely, I want to include them in this. But there's still work to be done. There's still issues to be brought to the forefront of the public mind. There's still this, divide that exists, and this is part and parcel of what we're doing. We want to go and continue, or we'll go across the country, meet folks along the way, connect them to each other, hear what they have to say, raise awareness about the fact that even though federal government workers have been invited back to work, members of the armed forces have not been, especially those that have been released on this item code called 5F. And just so to put it in language that people understand, it is effectively a dishonorable discharge. So they are released from the services because they disagreed with this mandated policy that now one sector of the federal government is actually looking past and allowing their workers to come back. So why not them?
Yeah.
So I'm going to continue to march to raise awareness about this issue. And why not include these codes? It'll be a good challenge.
It's glaring hypocrisy. There's utter inconsistency from the get-go. Certain groups excluded, changing their mind every couple months or less, every couple weeks often. Very happy to hear you're carrying on. For folks who want to sort of track your journey, get in touch, maybe learn a little bit more, read your sort of mission statement, where can folks find that?
Absolutely. You can go to canadamarches.ca, and the links to all of our social media platforms is there as well. We'll be turning the GPS tracker back on to make sure that people will get minute by minute updates as to our location. Yeah. And the route will eventually be published. We are not going to depart from Ottawa, just because Ottawa, I think, has given the way that this thing is being presented, we're going to let people of Ottawa just take a break. Mm-hmm. And we'll depart from a location in southern Ontario. So they are also included in the rest of into this march as well. Awesome. So that's what is the location where we're going to step off from is to be determined, but it is going to be more than likely in the vicinity of the GTA area. And we're also hoping to do a meet and greet with folks in and around London, hopefully later next week. Awesome. So you'll be able to keep track of us as well by if you do happen to be driving from Ontario to Newfoundland, you might see us on the highway.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, James. Really appreciate you taking a minute to speak with us here. I'm sure people are happy to have the record set straight. And as always, for everyone at home, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. For Rebel News, I'm Adam Soos. Rebel News is often the only ones out here telling these types of stories. Sometimes they're difficult stories, sometimes they're difficult topics, but it's important that we can bring you the other side of the story on these matters. If you want to support our independent journalism, as you know, we don't get handouts from the government. That's why we can tell some of these stories. You can support us by becoming a Rebel News Plus member for only $8 a month. You get access to all of our exclusive members-only show, no ads on the website, and plus you're keeping us hard at work telling the other side of the story. Again, go to rebelnews.com and sign up for Rebel News Plus.